Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL's Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen, Chris Smitherman behind the scenes. I'm Dave Holcomb. Got another really good show today, I think. No Falcons games now for quite a few months. What we wanted to happen in Week 18 didn't happen. Tom, you're looking at me with a puzzled face. What's going on?
I was getting some feedback there.
Okay.
I'm not hearing.
I know. I'm getting some bad feedback. So
okay, I'm not.
Go ahead, try again.
On my end. Let's try again.
No. Okay.
Yeah. So we have another exciting show for you today. We've no Falcons games for a few months now. What we wanted to happen in Week 18 did not come to fruition. The Falcons did not win. Did not get help from the Carolina Panthers. So no playoffs for the Falcons. No more Arthur Smith either. So we'll talk all about what went down this past week, touch on the game, but also what the Falcons do moving forward. They're already interviewing coaches. There's rumors that they have Bill Belichick in mind, although it seems like once Belichick became available, those rumors cooled off a little bit. But we'll touch on everything that's new with the Atlanta Falcons over the last week, and we've got playoff matchups. We'll touch on that and preview wild card weekend that's coming up. Starting
Super wild card weekend.
Super wild card weekend. There you go. I'm sorry. I knew there were too many wilds there.
Right. There was a couple. Right.
But yeah. So I mean, we're gonna have a very busy next hour.
Absolutely. Plenty to talk about with playoff football starting, and yeah, I still hear a lot of Belichick and Falcons connected, but the Falcons are right now doing their due diligence, getting a few guys in, doing some interviews, but I would not be surprised if it does end up as Belichick. I am not surprised that Arthur Smith, after last Sunday's game and the way this season's gone, I was not surprised to see Arthur Smith gone after last week.
Yeah, I think we both said that, this needed to happen. And I think I kind of left the one caveat where he saved his job would be if they somehow made it to the playoffs. And that didn't happen. I think if they had maybe won the game, perhaps he saves his job. I think Arthur Smith kind of knew that. I don't know if Arthur Blank told him, but just the emotion that Arthur Smith had on the sideline, a little bit extra in terms of celebrating after the Bijan Robinson touchdown, and then a little bit more animated with Desmond Ritter's mistakes in the second half, and then obviously really animated and upset at the end of the game. After the loss, and somewhat rightfully so. I thought that was Bush League what the Saints were doing, but I think Smith knew he was coaching for his job, and obviously it did not go well. The second half did not go well, and kind of a microcosm of the entire season. Started really well, right? Falcons 2-0. Talking about this team being a serious contender in the NFC South, and they were competing until the last week of the season, but the same errors that plagued this team and some new ones too, some penalties, which they really haven't been a very penalized team. They weren't this past season, but penalties popped up. Couldn't stop Taysom Hill, which they've never been able to do, and no running game, which was odd. And Desmond Ridder, making the mistakes, and Logan Whiteside as well. The late interception leading to a bunch of second half points for the Saints.
It was like Desmond Ritter's game started coming apart in the later parts of the season, where he did seem. I didn't agree with a lot of fans that he was unsettled or he looked nervous in the pocket or anything. I actually thought he looked fairly calm until the last few games of the season. Then he started really looking flustered and like he didn't have a good thought about what he was doing out there. And it just turned into a bad situation. And the Falcons were their own enemies this year. I mean, they had a chance. They lost to a lot of very beatable teams.
Yeah. Well, we talked about in the offseason last year how I don't like the word easy. Nothing's easy in the NFL, but it was a favorable schedule. It was a schedule with a lot of winnable games, as you called them, and now looking back at the season, there were games they lost to teams that are picking higher than they are, and they're picking at number 8. Lost to the Cardinals, lost to the Commanders. Those are the two that stick out in my mind.
Exactly. I looked at it as I was going through my final season stats.
Panthers too.
The Falcons against teams that finished the season over 500 were 5-4. They actually had a winning record against winning teams this past season. It's the losing teams they couldn't get past.
Right.
That's the big thing. They couldn't get past, Washington, Arizona. It just very frustrating the way that happened.
Yeah. I didn't mention Carolina. Obviously, that was the big one.
Oh, Carolina was the big one.
Yeah,
I think that's where it all came apart, was in that loss to Carolina.
Yeah, because if you have that win, then you're in a situation where you could still get in without a Tampa Bay loss.
Right.
You'd need other help in Week 18, but they could have gotten in as a wild card team last week with a win. Of course, the win didn't come anyway. But
right.
Did you have any issue with how the firing of Arthur Smith went down? It came out at like 12:02 a.m. East Coast time, I guess 11:02 where you're living. But it seemed like, I know this wasn't actually probably what happened, but it was like Arthur Blank was waiting for Black Monday to start, and 2 minutes into Black Monday, you're out, Arthur Smith. You're done.
Yeah, they could have waited till the morning. Let them have a little dignity out the door. Let them have a final press conference. But, I agree with you. I think Arthur Smith was waiting for that couple of minutes past midnight on Black Friday, and that was it. I agree. I think, it's almost like he made a point to do it right then. And which I think is a little cold. I do have a problem with it, but his mind was made up, but I don't think it hurts to wait.
Yeah, and supposedly they, talked after the game and all that happened, and because we've had situations where they fire the coach before the team gets on the plane. And I don't know, that would probably be worse than what the Falcons actually did. So could have been worse, but
could have.
Yeah. And then if you've already made the decision, then there's no point in waiting, is kind of how I feel. No time like the present. There's really no point to wait till morning, but it seemed very odd to me that,
well,
getting ready for bed after a half hour after Bills Dolphins ends, and we're getting a coach fired in the middle of the night. It was a little odd.
I just think it's a little disrespectful to a guy who's given 3 years of his life to your team. Did the best he could. Obviously not as good as anybody wanted, and this past season was nothing that anybody expected it to be. But it's, as I say, you could do the firing the following morning, give him a little bit of I think it just goes down to respect, and I don't think I think ultimately the decision was made. You're right. Why wait? Well, I think because you want to be a little respectful to the guy and let him walk out the door with his head held high and, that kind of thing. It's just, it was a little cold as far as I was considered.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Never too late to download the app, and when you do, use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So some free money for you to play with during the NFL playoffs. And we may have some suggestions that you can use on Super Wildcard Weekend coming up in a little bit. But right now we're breaking down the Falcons coaching change, firing Arthur Smith this week. We're reacting. I know it's been almost a week now, but we're getting in kind of sharing how we first reacted to the news and breaking that down. And then we're going to get into the candidates they've already interviewed and the Bill Belichick rumors. I have a couple other questions about the initial firing for you, Tom. Were you surprised at all that they kept Terry Fontenot?
No, I don't think so. I think they recognize that Fontenot did a pretty good job this season of shoring up their defense, really making that defense, one of the better ones in the league. I think that they felt Terry Fontenot gave Arthur Smith some of the tools he needed on offense. I will always disagree with Fontenot as far as the way he drafts, specialty players in the top 10 instead of going for building your foundations, which is your offensive and defensive lines. But I do believe that they feel Fontenot's done a fine job putting the pieces, giving Smith the people he needed to make something happen this year, and he didn't come through with it. So, no, I never felt that Fontenot's job was on the line.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, but I saw some chatter about that on social media, so I think it was worth asking you at least today. We got some comments coming in. Thanks for sending them our way, guys. False Start Falcon says, good morning, fellas. Good to see you, False Start Falcon. Thanks for being here. Gary says, please, not Grumpy Bill in Atlanta can't win without Brady. Yeah, I think that's a big concern among Falcons fans, and we'll get to those concerns in a little bit. Why I've seen a lot of anti-Bill Belichick chatter on social media with Falcons fans. Dave says, good morning, guys. I can't stomach Belichick. I'm sorry. This is a record-chasing move. Falcons will merely be a footnote. And
record chasing, by the way, meaning Bill Belichick chasing records.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. An Atlanta King Atlanta supporter says one day the Atlanta Falcons will win multiple Super Bowls. I believe in this team. I appreciate the loyalty and love it, the support, despite 3 straight 7-10 seasons. Not a lot of love for the Falcons right now, but hopefully a new coach can come in and kind of restore. The title of our show is the Falcons starting over again, but there's a lot of pieces that are here in Atlanta now where it's not a complete rebuild or a complete restart, or maybe it's more of a reloading, whatever R word you want to use. Falcons haven't wanted to use the rebuild word the last couple of years, but that's really what it was. Didn't come to fruition with, it being fast enough for Arthur Blank to keep Smith's job. And really that was the offense struggles. But I think it's an attractive job and it's nice to see some positivity from a fan there. Yeah. So that's great for King Atlanta supporter. The other question I have for you, Tom, about, like your initial reaction to the change. In the statement the Falcons released very, very early Monday morning, two minutes into Monday morning, they said Arthur Blank and Rich McKay will lead the coaching search with input from general manager Terry Fontenot. And I read that and I was like, oh, Tom's going to want to talk about that. So I want to hear what your reaction was to reading that statement.
Oh, I hated that statement. I saw that statement and I was like, oh no, here we go again. Because as well, and I've said this numerous times, it is not Arthur Blank's job, it's not Rich McKay's job to choose the head coach. It is your general manager's job to hire your next head coach. And I'm like, Arthur Blank is too involved in this and should not be. Owner's own. Stay, and I go back to this Jim Fink statement constantly. For those of you who are old enough to remember Jim Finks as general manager of the Vikings, Bears, and Saints. But, owner's own, general managers manage the team. It just comes right down to it. Coaches coach, owners stay up in their little box, smile when the camera's on them, wave, watch the game, and get out of the business operations.
Yeah, and you're not the only one that feels that way. The Falcons, Blank and McKay received questions about that specific part of their statement in their press conference that I believe took place either Monday or Tuesday. And they basically, I got a quote from Rich McKay here from NFL.com. Arthur Smith did not report to Terry, and we didn't set it up that way. We didn't want it that way. We wanted a partnership where there could be a shared vision and get us what we thought we needed on the personnel side. And I think we achieved that. We're definitely in a better place than we were 3 years ago based on their collaboration. And Arthur Blank also said, if you look at a traditional table of organization, they both report to Rich McKay. We've been clear about that. So that hasn't changed. It's kind of Rich represents Terry up here today. Again, we're trying to divide and conquer. Just be respectful of that. It has nothing to do with Terry personally. So
that's not showing respect. That's not showing respect to your general manager. I think that's very disrespectful to your general manager. And you're cutting him off at the feet. He doesn't have any option. If the players he's bringing in don't perform, well, it's him. And with Arthur Smith, we know it was Arthur Smith, the fact that some of these guys that Fontenot put on the field didn't get used. But you are cutting off your general manager, at the knees by not giving him the chance to be in charge of what he's supposed to be in charge of. So, yeah, Dave says, let's be honest, Rich McKay is the quasi-owner of the Falcons. Dave, I think Rich McKay is actually kind of taking the role of general manager of the Falcons, not officially, but I think decisions do roll through his desk as far as what players are drafted, what coaches, and we've already responded, what coaches are on the field. I do think, Larry Orange, Rich K is a co-general manager, and he shouldn't be. He's got to be out of that business. He's got other things to do. And it's a problem, I think, with Falcons organization. And I think it's a problem that's going to continue going on as long as Arthur Blank allows it to go on. But Arthur Blank wants to be a part of the organization too. Problem is, Arthur Blank does not have a football background.
Right. Yeah.
He's a businessman who has made a lot of money in his life. He's not a football man. Jerry Jones is not a football man.
Yeah, none of the owners are.
No, they're not football men. They've made a ton of money and decided that they wanted to be an owner of an NFL team. But now all of a sudden, they feel like they're more than the owner of an NFL team. Well, I made so much money in this business, I sure can figure out what to do with this business. Doesn't work that way.
Well, they're not trying to make money. I mean, anybody can make money in the NFL. You don't have to be a genius to do that. It sells itself. Yes. But winning games, that's a lot harder.
It is.
And, you talk about the disconnect and how this is going to continue to be a problem. Well, Terry Fontenot is not really going to be able to, or he won't be able to at all, to pick the next coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And he's the one drafting the players.
Right.
Maybe there's the reason why, Jonnu Smith has got all these targets instead of Kyle Pitts and Tyler Algier is still getting half the carries instead of Bijan Robinson being a workhorse back, because you have one person drafting and reporting to another person, and then another person coaching and reporting to that person. And that person doesn't have these two people on the same page.
Exactly. That is it exactly, Dave. And you got to have them on the same page. You got to have the guy who's doing the drafting on the same page as the coach, as far as being in the draft room on draft day, or, in meetings prior to draft day, and saying, how are you going to use these guys? Can you use this guy? Or is there somebody else you think would fit better with your offense? It sounds like that's a complete disconnect. As far as, Fontenot saying, I think Bijan Robinson's going to be an outstanding back for this team. I think Drake London is the wide receiver we need. Again, picked in the top 10, where I think you got to be building your foundation. But you give these guys to Arthur Smith. Well, Arthur Smith is like, does that really work with my offense? I want to run my offense this way.
Right. Yeah. And you also, it wasn't like Arthur Smith was very stubborn too. Like, he was given these pieces and these offensive weapons and continued to want to run his plays, his system, didn't care about getting the ball into the best players' hands. It was the plays, not the players. You know, that cliche that announcers say all the time. It was the opposite for Arthur Smith. That he was thinking plays.
Again, that's, and I didn't believe this when he first started, and I think I said it when he first started. I didn't think Arthur Smith was a guy who felt he was too smart for the room.
Yeah.
And it turns out he did think he was too smart for the room.
Yeah.
It's my system. I will fit the players into my system. Not I will fit my system around my players. And I have so much problem with coaches who go into leading their teams and have that attitude, where it's always the fact that my system's great. The players did not execute my system. And that's basically where I think Arthur Smith was the entire year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's not how coaching works. It's not how teaching works. If you're a teacher in high school, you can't teach the same way to every single kid. Every single kid responds differently to different teaching. Some people need to be pushed more. Other people need to be coddled or whatever. And it seemed like Arthur Smith just had a blank, this is how I'm coaching my entire offense, my entire team. And that just doesn't work. I mean, it will work if those players respond the way that you want to coach. But if you got players that don't, and got players that don't fit your system, the system that and you're not getting the players that fit your system because you're not working really with the general manager, you're reporting to Rich McKay.
Exactly. The guy you need to be working with to get the players you feel fit your system, you're not influencing. And he's not getting any input from you.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's a system that's going to break every time.
We got comments rolling in and a lot of positive people agreeing with us. Dave, thank you for the comments.
Yes, appreciate it, Dave.
Really appreciate it a lot. He agreed with our stubborn comment as well about Arthur Smith. Brian is here. Great to see you, Brian.
Yeah.
He says Arthur Smith is just an OC. World needs good OCs too. That's very true. Very true. And it'll be interesting to see where Arthur Smith lands. I didn't get a chance to read the article yet, but I'm going to read it after the show. Don't know how, concrete the rumor is. Basically just a rumor, but saw a story on a Steeler website that Arthur Smith could be heading to Pittsburgh. So we'll see if he becomes a candidate there.
Go ahead.
I'm just trying to look for some other comments here. Gary says, agrees with you, Tom, about the Atlanta head coach. Maybe Blank should have his coordinators and assistant coaches report to McKay as well. And Larry Orange wants to fire Arthur Blank. So,
Yeah, well, that's problematic, Larry. I'm sorry. That's where the whole thing comes apart. Yeah. Can't fire that guy.
Well, and I think this is an important conversation to have because whoever, you have whatever head coach you hire next has to accept this, maybe a little bit unusual setup where you're not working with the general manager,
right,
or working under a general manager. You're working for this vice president or whatever title Rich McKay has, and really working for him and Arthur Blank, and somewhat in collaboration, I guess is the word that they used, with the general manager. So it sounds like a little bit of a mess. And when you have a mess like this, I said this about Carolina a few weeks ago, I don't see why anyone would want to go to Carolina unless they offer a ton of money. Yeah. And I guess the Falcons could do that too. But I mean, what head coach do you think wants to step into this kind of situation? Do you think that's going to hurt them landing somebody like Bill Belichick, or Brian mentioned Jim Harbaugh as a guy that he wants to be on their candidate list? Can they not get somebody like that because of their organizational structure?
No, they cannot. They will not. Because a Harbaugh is not necessarily going to want more control, but he's going to want more input with the general manager. He's going to want to work hand in hand with his general manager. And it doesn't sound like that's going to be the way this develops. And I don't think Harbaugh would come in under this system. I don't think Belichick's going to come in under the system.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Belichick's used to having control. He's not going to have control in his next job.
Right. Yeah. And I thought that was interesting. His comments about saying he is willing to bring up or give up the general manager duties. And it sounded like that was kind of a plea maybe to keep his job. Although I think now that the Athletic was reporting yesterday that basically they had this succession plan in place and Gerard Mayo's already been named the head coach, that, I think Belichick was saying that for his next job, not for the Patriots.
Yeah, for his next job.
I was listening to some shows in Boston this week about the Belichick fallout, and they brought up Andy Reid, how Andy Reid was the general manager in Philadelphia and the coach. Disaster end to his tenure, 4-12, very similar to Belichick, only 4 wins for him this year. And then in his next job, Andy Reid wasn't the general manager, just went back to coaching, and obviously has had a ton of success, helped out by landing Patrick Mahomes. But, Andy Reid, ton of success with Kansas City even before Mahomes got there, winning with Alex Smith. So I thought that was interesting that Belichick said that and was willing to give up some of that control. And maybe that meant he was a fit for Atlanta, but with this unusual structure, I don't know if Belichick would, if that's appealing, especially with so many other openings. There's so many openings that someone like Belichick's going to be in demand. Jim Harbaugh is going to be in demand.
The problem is Belichick's going to want to work with his general manager, not be the general manager, but at least have a voice. But if Fontenot isn't in as much control over the general manager, it sounds like Belichick would have to kind of report up to Rich McKay and then have his wishes communicated to Terry Fontenot. That wouldn't be as a dynamic relationship as Belichick would want with his general manager, with the guy who is putting his players in place. Belichick's still going to want to say in what happens. He may get overruled like he wasn't in New England, but he's going to want to say. And it sounds like the power is too split here for him to be comfortable in this arrangement. And besides, Belichick, if you bring him in, this is a guy who essentially whatever team signs him, they're going to want to kick him upstairs after he gets whatever satisfaction, is overall wins record that he wants. And there's no way Rich McKay's going to let him be kicked upstairs. So that Rich McKay's not going to be behind Belichick. Because that would be the next move, was Belichick coming into the front office, being an advisor.
You think he wants to be an advisor after he gets the record?
I would think he would, yeah. I think a lot of coaches still want to be a part of the game. The hell of the game is coaching. That's when you're putting in all your 80 to 100-hour weeks.
Right, yeah. I mean, he could always go be an advisor for some other team.
Yeah, he could. He could also be a broadcaster. Although that would be interesting to see.
I don't know if he has much to say.
No.
Although I do think once Belichick, I've seen some of his interviews when he's not in a press conference setting and he's only talking about football, he's actually very knowledgeable.
Yes.
Very, very knowledgeable. He's been around the league for so long.
Right.
That, he's a good person to listen to. Entertainment? No, he's not going to be entertaining. So you got to be.
That's why I said it, and I'm thinking, no. That's not.
No, I think it's worth discussing. I think he's very knowledgeable, and people would, like diehard football people, would like listening to him. But the average fan would probably fall asleep.
The average fan would tune him out.
Yeah.
And that's Fox and ESPN, that they're not looking for that expert that is going to attract, the expert fan. They want the guy who they want to keep the average fans interested.
Well, I brought up Bill Belichick's age last week, and we saw Nick Saban, his buddy, who's like 6 months older by only 6 months, retire this week. And Belichick is thinking about getting another job. Pete Carroll, it sounds like he wants another job, and he's I think 2 months older than Nick Saban, so about same age. Then Brian brings that up, the age thing. Why would we even want to hire a 72-year-old coach? And Brian, I think we brought up the wins record. That's one thing, a positive PR for the Falcons. I'm not saying that's a good reason and why they should hire him. I just think that's a factor for Arthur Blank, perhaps. And the other thing is, if you think this team is in a position to make a run at a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, we can debate whether or not they are, of course. But if you're Arthur Blank, you're in your 80s, you're trying to get this team to win a Super Bowl before you pass on.
Yes.
So, yeah, you're going to go all in on a guy that's won it before. I think that's the logic for why Belichick could be coming to it.
Now, Blank could step in and, tell McKay to, relax, take it easy, or could assure Belichick of some things that maybe Belichick would be worried about. But you hit on one of the problems here, Dave. Blank wants a Super Bowl. That's why he's stepping in so much lately.
Yeah.
He wants that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's why he's getting more and more involved with what happens with the Falcons as a team on the field. And it's something that is not going to get any better anytime soon.
Yeah, and somewhat trying to take shortcuts to get there. Maybe that's not fair for me to say, but I'm kind of spitballing here that, you're not laying the foundation with. They did draft a bunch of offensive linemen in like 2018, but you kept sending a bunch of money to the guys that a lot of people were concerned about were past their prime on defense, and even like a Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, you gave them a bunch of money, hoping that team that was so close could get back and win the Super Bowl. And then when it was obvious that wasn't going to happen, you started drafting these playmakers on offense before getting the quarterback or developing the quarterback, and it just seems like, there's an urgency, maybe not, rather than going through the process, an urgency to like make it happen immediately.
Yeah.
What do you think about that take?
I agree with you. It makes me wonder how much influence Terry Fontenot has over the top pick in the draft if they're drafting top 10.
Yeah.
Now, I would say Terry Fontenot has plenty of influence over the rest of the draft, but taking instructions from Arthur Blank as far as getting playmakers in that top 10 spot. And that could be a problem with how this team is built too, because as I say, it's built wrong. You don't have your foundation players that where you're grabbing high, grabbing in those slots. And it turns into a problem. You can't build a successful team that way, I don't think. So
yeah, and we've talked about that a lot, how we don't agree with the way they've built the team. And I think there's disconnect with who's making the decisions, or we don't even really know for sure who is making these draft decisions. And there are clearly the four guys that are most directly responsible for the team winning, the head coach, GM, vice president, whatever Rich McKay is. And I got to learn his title, I guess, because we're talking about him all the time. And the owner are not on the same page.
Right. Exactly. And that's why there's no clear delineation of duties or no clear power structure, but that comes from Arthur Blank being involved.
Well,
you start wondering where some of these decisions are coming from.
It was kind of ironic that after Belichick was fired, let go, parting ways, however you want to describe that in New England, it was after he had become available. The Falcons started putting in requests to interview coaches, and they hadn't put in requests for 2 or 3 days, which I thought was odd. Kind of seemed like they were waiting to see what happened with Belichick. Then Belichick became available, and then they put in all these interviews. So they do have a list of coaches they're going to interview. They've already completed interviews with 2 Ravens assistants, Anthony Weaver and Mike McDonald.
Yes.
And they still have interviews coming up with Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, Steve Wilkes, Brian Callahan, Raheem Morris, Elijah Evero, Bobby Slowey, Slowey, and that's the last one on my list. So those are the remaining candidates they have on their requested interview list.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody stick out to you?
Ben Johnson's done a hell of a job in Detroit as far as running that offense. But he's going to be highly sought after by a few teams.
Right. Yeah, that was going to be my point about him.
Now on AtlantaFalcons.com, they also have Steve Wilkes on that list.
I mentioned him.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Wilkes, I think, would be an interesting hire because he's never really gotten the chance. He had 1 year of Arizona with Josh Rosen as his top quarterback. And he actually had the Panthers playing fairly well last year at the second half of the season. I thought Wilkes should have gotten the Panthers job before the season started.
Right.
But, so Wilkes does intrigue me because when he's been given a chance, he hasn't really been given a real chance with a team that, has some personnel, has some, has a future to it. And that's why, I'm very curious about Wilkes. So,
I think
Johnson, as I say, being NFC North. good would be a solid choice. We don't know what he'd do as a head coach, but then we didn't know what Arthur Smith would do as a head coach. I would be surprised to see Raheem Morris come back as head coach.
Yeah, that's true. A really good point there. And I liked your points about Steve Wilkes. I think he's a very good coach and should have remained in Carolina, probably. Should have been that coach this year.
They expected to take Bryce. Oh God.
Bryce Young.
Yeah. They expected to take Bryce Young. They wanted a mentor for Bryce Young, which is why they got Frank Reich, and that just completely fell apart.
Well, and the Falcons are kind of faced with the same decision this offseason. There's no obvious, like, we're not picking number 1 and we can get whoever we want. Maybe they don't even get a quarterback at number 8, but there's got to be quarterback development of some kind coming in Atlanta, and you got to get these playmakers that you have and you drafted so highly involved in the offense.
Yes.
So does the Falcons go with, that offensive guru, that hot coordinator that's, been calling offensive plays and got his current offense, humming like a Ben Johnson, or do they go with just who's the best football mind, like a Mike McDonald or a Steve Wilkes? It's an interesting debate that I think we'll probably have the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think so, because it's going to affect Ryan Nielsen's position with the team.
Right.
And I think everybody liked what Ryan Nielsen did with this team on the defense last year. Did a fantastic job of taking those pieces and making them work.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, my system, here's what you're going to do. Put his players in a position to succeed. And I think he did a very good job of it.
And even if they hire an offensive coach, we're still got to wonder if Ryan Nielsen stays, because a lot of first-time head coaches are going to want to hire their own coordinator regardless of if they have a defensive background or not.
I have a feeling that whoever gets hired as head coach is going to have to learn what the defensive – going to have to live with the defensive coordinator that he is provided with.
You don't think he'll be able to pick his defensive coordinator?
I think that's going to be one of the – if an offensive coordinator is hired, to be head coach, I don't think he has a choice. I think he's going to have to take Ryan Nielsen as defensive coordinator. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Which, I mean, you can't argue that he did a great job and deserves to stay, but I also don't think you.
Now, if the Falcons if they hire a former defensive coordinator, then that all goes out the window. Then you don't know what's going to happen here. Nielsen does go, but who hires the offensive coordinator? It's not Fontenot. And it might be the fact that they say, tell a defensive coordinator, you want to be our head coach, you will live with the offensive coordinator that we give you.
Shouldn't be done that way either, but I see your logic there based on what we've kind of heard from the Falcons over the last week.
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to be a prerequisite to take the job.
Which, by the way, even if they hire a defensive coordinator, it doesn't mean that Ryan Nielsen shouldn't have the opportunity to stay. I know that's very unusual, but Mike Tomlin kept Dick LeBeau and went to 2 Super Bowls with Dick LeBeau as his defensive coordinator. It's a great example of a head coach stepping in and not wanting to be the smartest man, kept a guy that was twice his age, had a ton of experience on his staff, wasn't threatened by him, and together they went to 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm sure these defensive coordinators, when they go in for their interviews, are being asked, how do you feel about keeping Ryan Nielsen?
Yeah, I bet that is a question that's being asked, yes. Yes.
So we'll see. We'll see how that develops.
It is a fair question. It's a fair question because, again, Nielsen did a really good job. He deserves to stay.
Did a fantastic job. Especially, halfway through the season when his his inner defensive line came apart. When Grady
Right.
Jarrett went out, for the season, and that defense still managed to hold up and still managed to play well.
Yeah, I think my takeaway point there is the ownership should not force him to stay on any coach that comes in and becomes the head coach. But any head coach that does come in should really think seriously about keeping him. That's how the situation should go down for me. He's going to end up staying, which what I'm saying should happen anyway, but he's staying for the wrong reason. He's staying because Arthur Blank and Rich McKay are telling him, you have to stay, or you're stuck with him. You're telling that to the new head coach. But
we're going to get a clearer picture. I don't know. I keep saying we're going to get a clearer picture of this as we move forward. I don't know. Do you really think this picture is going to clear up at any point?
What picture are you talking about? Like the structure of the Falcons, or who they're going to hire as head coach?
Who they're going to hire and how this is all going to work as far as the staff.
I don't know if we'll ever get that answer, but obviously we're going to find out who's going to be the next coach at some point later this month or beginning of February. So it's going to be an interesting process. I mean, the whole situation, the entire NFL is interesting. Got 7 openings now because Gerard Mayo is the new Patriots head coach. But before that was announced, it had 8 openings. A quarter of the league is going through a change at head coach. And some of these changes that are being made are not like slam dunk. Yeah, got to make them like the Falcons situation was. I mean, Mike Vrabel out in Tennessee, Pete Carroll out in Seattle, and even the Bill Belichick stuff. I know had a bad season, hasn't done much since Tom Brady left, yada, yada, yada. But still, letting go of a 6-time Super Bowl champion is is a big deal. A big step. And him being available with some of these other guys I just mentioned, Vrabel and Carroll, it's going to be a crazy coaching hiring cycle.
Yes, it will. I'm looking forward to this. I want to see how this plays out. Yeah. Especially with your usual coordinator candidates that you come up with every year. And everybody has their list of coordinators who are about ready to step up. And we've talked about some of them here that are on the Falcons list. But you got these other guys, and you don't know about Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh's he's gotten his brass ring with Michigan. He's got his national championship now. Does he want to come back to the NFL and get a Super Bowl championship? Missed out on that with 49ers, not by much, but he did. Lost to his brother.
Right.
But, that's another wild card you got in the mix. Is what does Harbaugh have in mind? Does he want to go back to the NFL?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair question that will be answered over the next few weeks. So we'll have NFL coaching news and the carousel discussion every single Saturday.
Yeah.
Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app. When you do, use our promo code ASU. Gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So some free money there, even though the regular season is over. You can still play because there's plenty to choose from.
Whoa.
How about we kick off our Super Wildcard Weekend coverage for the games with a couple of prize picks?
I was gonna start with cricket, but if you want to do that, because New Zealand is playing Pakistan, so
can always count on you for a cricket reference.
All right, you want a prize pick for
the NFL? Give us NFL.
NFL, really? You want the NFL? All right, we'll do that. Tua Tagovailoa. I would go under the 230.5 yards.
Under, okay.
Under. It is going to be below zero. Below zero.
Yeah.
Dave, you've lived up north. You know how freaking cold zero gets.
It's cold.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Miami's banged up. Mostert still has a leg injury. Waddle has a leg injury. I think Tagovailoa is going to have problems moving that offense. He's playing a winning team. The Dolphins keep getting they don't just lose to winning teams. They get their mouths smashed and they get punched in the face by winning teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with the temperature that you are about to see in Kansas City, I would say Tua under the 230.5. Definite. Book it.
I like it. Okay.
All right. You got one for me?
Price Picks is throwing me off because I want to get all of the unders in the Bills-Steelers matchup. It's going to be 7 inches of snow on the ground. They're predicting 25 degrees for that game. Yeah, you haven't seen the weather forecast?
I did not see snow in that forecast.
So, there were. I don't think this was actually true, but there was a report in Pittsburgh they could move the game. They're worried so much about the weather.
Really?
Yeah. So, yes. No. Yeah. Our producer Chris.
They just clear the field. They never move games out of.
They've moved games
Buffalo. That's part of their home field advantage. They've
moved games out of Buffalo before when they get hit with like 2 feet. I prefer it to be in Buffalo. Right. This was the next thing I was going to say. I think I heard up to 50 miles per hour wind gusts in Buffalo tomorrow. The Steelers added another punter to their practice squad. Really weird addition to the practice squad for a playoff game. But I don't think the Steelers have a lot of confidence in their starting punter. Either he's hurt or they don't have much confidence that he can kick in the wind, and they brought in this veteran that they've had on the team in previous seasons. So
wow,
the weather is going to be a factor in the Bills-Steelers game is what we're concluding here. And I guess Prize Picks knows that because there aren't any Bills or Steelers players available.
Yeah, that's probably right. I'm just looking it over too, and no, they are completely off the list. That game is off the board. So, Tony Hall just came up with a piece of news for us.
Oh, when did that come out?
Must have just happened because that did not happen when we went on the air here. So, game moved to Monday, which, again, doesn't surprise me. But and Kasim Smith, he came up with the same thing. Game moved to Monday. So must be official.
The governor of New York, who not the biggest fan of right now with what she had to say about Steelers fans, but she said that in communication this is her tweet on X or Twitter.com. I've been in communication with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell regarding the dangerous conditions in Buffalo this weekend. In consultation with our emergency response teams and Bills leadership and the NFL, the Bills game will be postponed until 4:30 p.m. on Monday.
Okay. So they will be the kind of the pregame before the Eagles take on the Buccaneers.
Yeah. Yeah, which I wonder if the NFL's, I'm sure they're disappointed about it. It's like a Monday afternoon game.
Well, it is.
Can't definitely will hurt viewership as opposed to it being on Sunday afternoon.
That's life.
I'm just saying the NFL's got to be upset about that.
Yeah, I know. But they're not looking at how dangerous it is for people either. So that's, sometimes this happens. Brian, as far as a player prop, also said, and I agree with him, Isaiah Pacheco is at 65.5 rushing yards. And for over-under, I would take the over on that because I think Pacheco is going to get a lot of work in that temperature tonight in Kansas City. So I would definitely take that one. That's a good suggestion, Brian.
My suggestion would be Josh Allen. I think he's going to throw a pick. if he gets back on the board for the if the Bills and Steelers players get back up there, and assuming the weather is still not good Monday, I guess it'll be better than Sunday. But Allen's thrown a lot of interceptions this year.
Yes, he has.
And I think in the cold weather and the snow, I think he'll throw an interception against the Steelers who've had a lot of interceptions this year.
Yeah, I would agree.
That was going to be one of my picks. I think the other one I'd go with is Dak Prescott. Passing yards, 281.5. I would go over there. A guy who has great home splits, right?
Yes.
If this was a road game, if this was in Lambeau Field, absolutely not. I'd go the under. But right. In Dallas, he's been incredible this season. Yeah. I mean, if all his games were in Dallas, he would have won the MVP this year. Like he has had incredible home statistics.
He sure does.
And so I think I think Mike McCarthy has something to prove too, playing the Packers. I think Cowboys could win big in this one, and Dak's going to have a big day.
So do I. I agree with you. I think I agree with you exactly for those reasons. So I think we've given out a few very nice prize picks opportunities.
Yeah, I think we got a nice mix there. We just only have a few minutes left. I got two questions for you. What is the must-watch game? Like which game this weekend is the game that like you're most looking forward to? I guess is the question I want to ask. And then I want your Super Bowl prediction. Who's gonna win the AFC and who's gonna win the NFC?
Oh, you don't want my picks against the spread this week?
So, I'm sorry. I forgot about your what do you got against the spread?
Against the spread, I have the Texans beating the Cleveland Browns and by 2.5, the spread there. So take Houston at home. Take Kansas City minus 4.5 at home. I'm also saying I'm taking Buffalo and Pittsburgh off the board. Buffalo's favored by 9.5, but that weather's going to be a big equalizer.
You're taking them off the board like prize picks.
Yeah, I'm taking them off the board. Dallas minus 7 against Green Bay. As you said, Dallas it's a whole different team at home. I'm taking the Rams to upset the Lions tomorrow. Really? And taking the Buccaneers to beat the Eagles, the defending NFC North champions, at home. The Eagles are just struggling mad. And I don't know what's going on there, but they are really on a down point coming into this Super Bowl, this postseason.
Yeah.
So those are my picks for the weekend. Eagles getting 3. I mean, Buccaneers getting 3. They're actually the home dogs. So a little surprised. But I think a lot of that, people are thinking about last year's Eagles.
Right.
But the last month's Eagles have not been all that good.
Yeah.
Rams have been playing well. Lions have not been playing well. Take the Rams plus 3. And the rest take favorites. So.
Okay.
I
like all those. I'm on the Lions, though.
Okay. Hey, never know. I'm actually looking forward to the Browns-Houston game that leads off this weekend.
Really?
Yeah, I want to. I mean, yeah. Houston is an interesting team, and C.J. Stroud, I think, is a definite starting quarterback now in the NFL. I've said it about 6 weeks ago, take rookie off the front of his title. Not rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud, quarterback C.J. Stroud. And Houston does have a defense. They have, Cleveland plays great defense. So which defense is going to prevail? Which quarterback is going to be able to overcome the opponent's defense?
Right. Yeah. You got the number 1 defense against one of the best rookie quarterbacks ever, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to see that. And I'm also interested to see Monday night because I want to see if the Eagles do start playing like the defending NFC champs again. Are they coming back? Or is this last month kind of the you know, kind of is that who they are, or are they still the NFC champions? It's going to be interesting to see.
Those would probably be the two games I wouldn't pick, to be honest. So
really,
I'm obviously looking forward to the Steeler game. I'm looking forward to the Lions game. Those are the teams that I cover at heavy.com. Would appreciate the listenership we have here. Check out my articles this weekend for the playoff coverage. But I think just as a casual fan, how can you go wrong with Packers Cowboys? Just so much history there, and the McCarthy versus the Packers thing. And I think that's a very intriguing match. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a close game, but
and that's kind of what I kind of went into my judgment of it.
Okay.
However, in NFL history, back before, when the Super Bowl just got started, back when it was still the NFL and AFL, the Packers and Cowboys played two of the greatest NFL championship games to ever be played in 66 and 1967.
Yeah.
And that it goes back a ways. There is a playoff history with these teams. And if anybody isn't familiar with them, go back and take a look. The 66, and it was Vince Lombardi coaching against Tom Landry.
Mm-hmm.
And great games. 67 was the Ice Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
Which, they was just still the coldest game in NFL history. But yeah, I mean, considering history, I just don't think it's going to be as big of a game. I think the Cowboys are going to dominate in this game.
I'm looking forward to tonight's game as well. The Chiefs and Dolphins. I know the Dolphins are banged up, but gonna have really cold weather there, and that I think that makes for exciting playoff football. And I think Mahomes is gonna have a big say in this postseason. Like, I think the Ravens are definitely the best team, but if they're matched up against the Browns or the Steelers, both those teams play their rivals or division rivals. They played each other a lot. I think if Cleveland or Pittsburgh can slip through this first round, they've got a shot at upsetting Baltimore and then just opening up the AFC. And honestly, I think you're opening it up for a team like Kansas City. And I'm going to have Kansas City as my AFC champion here, Tom.
Whoa.
And I'm going to take San Francisco as my NFC champion.
Taking Frisco. Yeah, I think right now it's hard not to take Frisco as your NFC champion. Just looking at the competition, looking at the way it's going to play out. Again, Dallas would have to play them on the road. Rams don't seem to play them tough. I
actually think Detroit is going to be the other NFC championship participant. I think Detroit will go into Dallas and upset them. They're going to be really itching to play that game after the Week 17 thing that happened with the ineligible receiver there.
God, yes.
Yeah, I think that's I think the NFL wants that matchup, to be honest. They really want Dallas and Detroit to win these games so they can get it. They're getting Detroit versus Matt Stafford. That was the first thing they wanted.
Yes.
And now they're hoping Detroit wins that and they get Dallas and Detroit again. Or, Detroit Green Bay would be pretty good too for the NFL. But I think
Detroit Green Bay would be fun, yes.
Yeah, it would. But I think they really want Detroit and Dallas. And based on how Detroit played in that game, I know I just hyped up Dallas's home record, but I think their toughest opponent at home was Detroit a few weeks ago. Detroit will have confidence going into that game, and they'll be mad. So I think it's going to be Detroit. My prediction is Lions, 49ers, NFC Championship, but 49ers too much. And I won't pick a Super Bowl winner, but I'm picking a rematch of the Super Bowl a few years ago, 49ers and Chiefs.
It's hard for me, and I agree with you on the 49ers. I don't want to go chalk and say that, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say the Ravens. I didn't want to go chalk, but I mean, you can't argue they're the best team right now. do you think anybody's going to upset them? That's or is there any concern about Lamar Jackson's playoff record? I mean, those are the two things, or him being rusty, I guess, because he's going to have some time off here.
Yeah, I do have concern about him being rusty. Actually, I say don't sleep on Buffalo yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I know they haven't given a lot of people reason to be super confident in their ability to get through the postseason, but don't sleep on Buffalo yet. I think there's still some toughness to that Buffalo squad that might get them through this. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I think, we'll see how the teams handle the game being moved now to Monday, but the 9.5 point spread, I think, says all you need to really know about what people think about Buffalo right now. They're, at least against the Steelers anyway, they're very high on the Bills. So I don't think people are sleeping on them, to be honest.
I think people are sleeping on them to make it successfully through the entire postseason.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think people are giving the Steelers much of a chance this weekend.
Right. Yeah. Which we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it could go either way. They're a different team with Mason Rudolph. Can't believe I'm saying that. But
no.
They really are.
They have been.
They've got competent quarterback play, and everything has fallen into place, including George Pickens. He's blocking now, being quiet about not getting targets and receptions. Everything is perfect, apparently, except TJ Watt's not playing. That's a big problem.
That is the big problem.
Yeah.
It's a different team. It's a different defense without TJ Watt on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. They have more depth there than they did last year when Watt missed 6-7 games.
Mm-hmm.
But they're obviously not TJ Watt. So we'll see how they're able to, if they're able to pressure Josh Allen and, force him into those mistakes that we've seen him make, and the mistake that I'm predicting that he's going to make by throwing at least one interception. So, but thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're out of time. Thanks for making us a part of your Saturday. We enjoy connecting with all of you Falcons fans, and we should definitely, we will continue to connect and discuss where the team moves forward in their head coaching search the rest of the month.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty to talk about. So keep joining us here on Saturdays. We love having you here. Love that you spend some time with us on your Saturday morning or whenever you catch our feed. So everybody have a great week.